I say we're losing recipes and there's dying art forms out here, this is what I mean. Welcome to Furniture Talk, where we talk about furniture. Let's talk about some of the vintage smoking accessories and ephemera out there. I truly cannot articulate to you how normalized and how commonplace smoking was, even when I was growing up and smoking was seen as a cultural taboo. I will say that like in 2002 is about when we saw the decline of the smoking section, but I even remember when I was a kid, like Denny's still had a smoking section. And I say all of this to say that ashtrays are the most common form of vintage smoking ephemera, meaning that if a place even existed, it probably had ashtrays, and if it was a chain or any type of premium business, it even had branded ashtrays. McDonald's had disposable ones. Making yourself look like a dragon is a centuries old tradition. We have a ton of not only just vintage, but just antique smoking ephemera out there on the market. Smoking was done at all income levels, meaning that you have tons of luxurious smoking ephemera and items. What about an elevated smoking tray? Elevated ashtrays were super common in hotels, bars, lounges, etc. Growing up, I remember my grandparents having these. It doesn't just stop at ashtrays. What about my personal favorite, the combination ashtray lighter and lamp? These date back to the Art Deco era. Use the same electric lighter heating system that's found on car lighters. Also, sidebar, if you like vintage smoking ephemera, Seth Rogen has a brand called Houseplant in which he recreates and makes a lot of like contemporary ephemera using the lexicon of vintage and antique smoking ephemera, and I think the brand's super sick. Here's an example of his freestanding ashtray, but let's get back to the rest of the video. Like I said, it wasn't just vintage ashtrays or lighters, bro. You had like vintage match holders. Everybody and their mom loves to talk about vintage and antique cigarette cases, and they're cute and they make great supplements for wallets. What about the at-home cigarette holder? They're absolutely so gorgeous. So contemporarily, the only thing you could really put in here is tree. So don't smoke, but also like it's kind of hard not to when you have cute little antique boxes like this that are also music boxes. Lipstick holders were another one. I know people would sometimes use them to hold cigarettes as well. If it was a lamp, it would usually double as an ashtray. Smoking wasn't really seen as taboo or dirty or gross up until like I'd say the late 90s and early 2000s. Ashtrays were no different than a fireplace and something that you kept around the house and empty at the end of the night. So many gorgeous ashtrays, lighters, cigarette holders, as well as smokers' jewelry in both precious and non-precious materials. True ashtray usually has a hilt to place the bud when you're not actively using it. Most actual true vintage ashtrays have a visual lexicon to them. Truth be told, any tray that could hold stuff was an ashtray. They were a huge part of the traveling, leisure, and restaurant industry. Much like vintage matchbooks, it's only something kept alive through a hauntological nostalgia.